We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman Kuf Lameted, the Halachot of Kriyat HaTorah, and we are up to Sif Bet, Daf Chaf Aleph, Amud Bet of the regular prints of Mishna Berura. And Maran writes, Mi she'eno yodea likrot, a person that doesn't know how to read from the Sefer Torah, you have to stop him from getting an aliyah and going up to the Sefer Torah. And if you need him, this person that doesn't know how to read, kohen or Levi, because he is the only kohen, he is the only Levi. So we spoke already before that this is a gezerah, the takana that Chazal made for us to be able to have an order in the community. So Kohen gets the first, Levi gets the second. So if he is the only Kohen, the only Levi, and you need him, so to speak, no other Kohen and Levi is available. If he could follow from the writing of the Sefer Torah, in other words, he is literate, he knows how to read, it's just that it's difficult to read with the Nekudot and Ta'amim, when the Nekudot and Ta'amim are not written in the Sefer Torah, but when a Shaliach Tzibur reads properly, he could read with him from the Sefer Torah itself. So in other words, he's looking at the Sefer Torah and he's just using the assistant of the Baal Koreh for reading it properly with the drops. Then, says the Shulchan Aruch, Yachol La'alot. Then he could actually get an aliyah and he will follow along with the Shaliach Tzibur and reads along with him. Ve'im lav lo ya'aleh. Anything short of that, he should not get an aliyah. Now, the Rama already, instead of writing his comments on this Sa'if, he already told us before what he holds about this. And again, this is something that we're going to have it again as well, that the minhag is to be more lenient. The Mishna Berura said, even a person that doesn't know how to read, we will be mekel, the minhag of the Ashkenazim at the very least, that as long as he could read along, even though that he's not quote unquote literate, to be able to follow and read from the words of the Sefer Torah, still we give him aliyah. Not only that, said the Mishna Berura, we even give an aliyah to a person that we don't know fully if he's going to follow along and read. We're just not very exacting about that, said the Mishna Berura, which is the minhag of the Ashkenazim. Many communities have become more lenient, but the strict read of Shulchan Aruch indicates that this is going to be only in a situation in which he could actually read from the Ktav of the Sefer Torah. So says the Mishna Berura in Sif Bet, Sarich limchot, that you have to stop him, you have to reject him as a candidate for Aliyah. Writes the Chafetz Chaim, mitoch divrei mechaber muchach. You see clearly from Maran over here, that even if he could read with the Shaliach Tzibur, if you could follow along, milah be'milah mitoch haktav, word for word from the writing of the Sefer, gam ken en likroto, you can't call him up, kevan she'achol likro la'acher, because you have another option. In other words, even in this case, Maran says, b'di'evet, if you have another Levi that could read himself properly, you have to take that Levi or that Kohen. It's only mutar to take this guy up, but the eved when there is nobody else, and that's also given that he at least could read along from the Sefer Torah. But says the Chafetz Chaim, you see from other Rishonim, from the Rosh, Teshuvot HaRosh, in Klal Gimel Siman Yud Bet, you see from the Tur later on in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph, and other Rishonim as well, that Bet Yosef brings actually there, Yesh La'akel Bazeh, that it could be more Mekel. And this is the view of Rabbi Hizkiah di Silva, the amazing Peri Hadash. He is more lenient. Ubifrat lefi ma shekatav b'seif Gimel, b'shem Ma'aril b'vadai el nachmir bazeh. So as we're going to see in the next Saif, in the Maran and the Ramah, the minhag is a little bit more lenient than this mechaber. Now, lo ya'aleh lefi she'asur likra afilu ot achat shelo min haktav. Why is he not allowed to get an aliyah? Because you cannot read b'torah shebichtav even one word ba'al peh. You're not allowed to read the Chumash. Imagine, this happens, by the way, a lot with Bar Mitzvah Bachrim. Bar Mitzvah Bachrim, Baruch Hashem, they, especially those growing up in a nervous family, they know the whole parasha Ba'al Peh, right? So what happens a lot of times is that as they're reading, especially when it comes to the bottom of the column, going to the one or two words, they already said it, Ba'al Peh. That's Asur. You cannot do that. You cannot read even one word Ba'al Peh when it comes to Chumash. So therefore, if the person cannot follow from the Ktav, what is he doing? Essentially, he's reading it Ba'al Peh. What's the difference? Because it's his mitzvah to read, right? It's his mitzvah to read l'chatchila. So if I have a tape recorder, right, or a recorder of some sort, right? Tape recorder is from 85 years ago. You have a recorder, and I have it in my ear, and it's saying the pasuk, and I'm reading it. I have no clue where I'm reading it from. So it's not Kriyat Torah. What's the fact that I'm standing physically in front of the Sefer Torah makes no difference. For that matter, I could have been standing by the door of the Bet Knesset and read. I'm not reading from the Chumash. I'm reading from Ba'al Peh. So here's the same thing. The Shachsir is standing next to me, and he is reading. I have no clue what it says over this. Chinese to me. So for that matter, I could have been standing by the door of the Bet Knesset, following after him, and that's not necessarily valid. That's the reason of the Shulchan Aruch, that person should be able to read themselves. You see that minhag Ashkenaz, as the Ramah is going to mention in the next seif again, is to be mekel bechol kiyai gavna. In all these cases, the minhag of the Ashkenazim is to be mekel. Now, in Eretz Yisrael, the Kaf HaChaim writes, you should know Kaf HaChaim was a student of the Ben Ish Chai. He was born and raised in Baghdad, and then he left his family, Mesirut Nefesh. He left his family to go learn in Eretz Yisrael. Later on, his family joined him, and so on. He was in Yeshivat Mekubalim in Bet El. So therefore, he has a lot of the minhagim of Eretz Yisrael as well. So he says, the minhag in Eretz Yisrael is you give aliyah to even a person that does not know how to read Hebrew. He doesn't understand the Surat HaOtiyot, has no clue how to read any Hebrew text. Still, they give him aliyah, even though that we're not so sure if he could even read after the Shaliach. Our minhag is, we tell the person that gets an aliyah, it's like, say after me, try to follow along. But says the Kaf HaChaim, the minhag in Eretz Yisrael was lahakel. So just like we're going to see in Seif Gimel, that the minhag of Ashkenazim has been to be lenient, the minhag of the Sfaradim also in many places has been the same way. And he writes that you're allowed, it's not the minhag ta'ud, you're allowed to continue this minhag as well. Again, many of the other Sephardi countries also had this minhag. In Shelodu Tshuvot Peulat HaTzadik, he writes that was their minhag as well. Look, this is a widespread minhag all across Klal Yisrael, both Ashkenazim and Sfaradim and Edot HaMizrach. And you see from this Kaf HaChaim that when you don't have a minhag, a clear minhag in this subject, then of course you should be machmir like Maran Shulchan Aruch, because Kibalnu Horaot Maran, we have accepted the psakim of Maran Shulchan Aruch, and we wouldn't want to give him aliyah. But if you have a clear minhag, and a lot of communities do, then of course you could rely on it. And the same is said in the name by the Talmidim of Rabbi Tzir Abba Shaul, right in Or Letzion, basically the same notion as well. And there are others who say give him an aliyah and just have a mosif afterwards. This way you will have 7 aliyot from people who actually could read, and so on. But again, these are dependent on every Rav in every community to clarify what the minhag has been, and to follow suit based on the minhag and the halacha. And as we mentioned, the reason for this is because asur to read anything ba'al peh. You cannot read by heart things that are bichtav, and if a person sees the ktav inside, but then reads it ba'al peh afterwards, if he says it toch k'de dibur within a second, so our Ovadia says that that's considered as if you read it from inside, right? But it's, again, sometimes it happens that a person has a question how to read it, looks in the Chumash, and then he reads it. That becomes problematic because if it passes a second, then it becomes a little bit of a problem. So you have to be mindful of these halachot. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Saif Gimal, finished basically Saif Bet. Afilu Rosh HaKnesset or Chazan lo yikra she'omru lo kera. A person should not stand up there and read by himself, or get the aliyah by himself automatically, until the person that's in charge will tell them to go up to an aliyah. It's not respectful. It looks arrogant and presumptuous to get up there just like that. It's not the proper conduct. So you wait until they tell you to call you up to go. Again, of course, if he has bought an aliyah in one of those communities that they sell the aliyot out, it's very different. Then you should be going as soon as possible when it's your turn, not to make the tzibur wait. Of course, that would be the case. But in lack of that situation, a regular community that they don't sell the aliyot, a person should not be claiming an aliyah without being called up to it. Now, if you're the shaliach tzibur, right, and you're the appointed person to handle the chazanut and the reading and all of that, then there are those who have accustomed their communities that the shaliach tzibur, whatever he wants, he says the bracha and he reads without having reshut, because that's his job. He's the kavua person to read. Because it's viewed as part of his contract, that as when the contractual agreement was done with him, that it includes also that he could read the Torah whenever he wants. Says the Ramah, ובמדינות אלו in Ashkenaz אינו הגינקן, that's not the minhag. ואין החזן עולה, רק סגן אומר לו לעלות. Even the Hazan does not get an aliyah and read until the person in charge, the Gabai, the Sagan, tells him to go up. אבל אין קוראים לו בשמו, but you don't call him with his name like the other people that they call them with their name up to the Torah. Ploni ben Ploni, by Chazan you don't have to do that. Umishe aviv mumar la'avodat kochavim. A person that his father is a mumar, he changed his belief system, Rahman al-Itzlan, and he went out of the fold of Yiddishkeit. So you want to call up his son to get an aliyah. What are you going to call him? You want to call his name. He became a goy. He left the fold. We call him with the name of the grandfather, the father of his father, avalo bishmo levad, but not with his name. You don't say Yamod Ruben bechavod. You say Ruben ben Shimon, when the Shimon was his father's father, and that's how we call him up to the Torah. Avalo bishmo levad shelo lebayesho berabim, because you don't want to embarrass him publicly, to call him with his name only, and indicate that he has this issue, because everyone's going to ask why you called him only with his name. So therefore we call him with Ploni ben Ploni, but we just use the grandfather's name instead. And that's only when he has never used the name of his father. But if he is a big person, he already has been getting aliyot for all these years. He's been getting aliyot with the name of his father. His father was an okay person, and now all of a sudden his father left the fold. Well, you're going to change his name to the grandfather. We're not going to do that. We just continue saying his name with his father's name. Again, for the same reason, we don't want to embarrass him publicly. These things are sensitive. A person that's involved with inyanet tzibur has to be so gentle and sensitive to the nuances of social sensitivities, not to chas v'shalom cause embarrassment and an uncomfortable situation for people. And again, it's one of the dangers of being osek b'sorchei simur be'emunah, because inevitably sometimes you may render a situation that someone becomes uncomfortable. Hence the Rabbanim stand by Erev Yom Kippur and ask Mechila from everyone, and the Gabayim, and same thing with everyone that is involved with the Tzibur. But again, a certain amount of ishtadlut should be done to avoid any possible scenario in which a person could potentially be hurting someone's feelings. Also, you have another heter. Imagine the father who went off the fold. He is a very rich and famous and powerful and dangerous individual, and he is going to hear about it, and he's going to cause trouble. For that, in that case also, if he is a difficult person and he's on top of these things, you should be also mindful, and you have a heter to call this Mumar's name when his son gets an aliyah, in order to not cause any troubles for the tzibur. And a person that is asufi or shtuki, you don't know who the father is. He was adopted, and you know who the mother is, but you don't know who the father is. Unfortunately, there are cases like that, and that you call them in the name of their grandfather, the mother's father, and if it's not known, then korinoto b'shem Avraham. Then we call him Peloni ben Avraham. Just like any ger is called ben Avraham Avinu, of course every Jew is called ben Avraham Avinu, and therefore we call him Peloni ben Avraham, and that would be sufficient. Now this is a long Gemara. Now the Shulchan Aruch continues, Suma Eino kore lefi she'asur likro afilu ot achat shelo min haktav. A blind person, Rahman litzlan, cannot get an aliyah because he can't read from the Chumash. He doesn't have the ability of reading, and therefore we don't give him an aliyah, says the Shulchan Aruch. And the Maharil writes, the Rama adds this in parentheses, from the Maharil, which was one of the last generation of Rishonim that gathered the minhagim of the Ashkenazim. He brings that the minhag is the achshav kore suma, that nowadays even a suma, even a blind person, Rahman litzlan, we give him an aliyah, kemo she'anu makrim b'torah la'amaretz. Just like we call up an amaretz, an ignorant, without knowing how to read. Suma is no different from that either, so we could read him the Torah. Now, it is that we started the Seif saying that even a Rosh Knesset, even one of the people who are in charge, the main board members and presidents of the Bet Knesset, we still don't allow them to get up there by themselves without being called up to the Torah. But at the same time, this is also bound to minhagim. It's not a halacha without ilchata b'lotama. It depends on minhagim. So if you have a community that the minhag is that the president of the shul, or any other board members, whatever it is, some people who are the main figures that run the shul, and the needs of community really rests on their broad shoulders, and because of that, there's a minhag that's developed that the Rosh HaKahal, the head of the community, or the Rav of the community, they go up to certain parashiot. They get some Hasidic communities and Sephardic communities have a minhag that the Rav gets shishi every week, right? Because the Hasidim also follow the words of Ariyah Kadosh. The shishi is the most important. And with Rebbes, that's one of the big things. And also, Aseret HaDibrot, certain parashiot, they're the ones who get that parasha, and even though that there's a whole tzibur over there, the Chafetz Chaim writes you could do that. It's not if the minhag is clear like that, you don't have to get reshut. Automatically it happens like that because that's the minhag, and that's considered netilat reshut. Even if you have a new rabbi, a new gabbai, a new rosh bet knesset, still that follows the minhag. And the same way is if you have, for instance, a simcha. You have a wedding, you have a bar mitzvah, and the minhag is that the gabbai announces whoever wants an aliyah, yalla, come, we give musifim. Right? So is he allowed to do that? If that's the minhag, says the Chafetz Chaim, in those places that this is their minhag, they could do that. Everyone could go get an aliyah, even without being called up specifically to the Torah, because everyone, the ones aliyah gets up, so if you get up there, you don't have to be called up. That's fine as well, of course. And same is with other minhagim of the Bet Knesset. For instance, you have a place, a community that they go up to the Torah according to the way they're sitting in the Bet Knesset, one after the other, without calling them up, right? It goes based on order of the seats that are assigned in the shul. This way you keep track of who's getting aliyah, who's not. So you could just get up there without being called up. Then it's your turn. You know your turn. Everyone knows it. It's well understood. So that's also considered like they called you up, and it's well understood. Now, the reason Mr. Berura wrote is because you don't want to give yourself kavod. That's why you should not be standing up there without being called. It sounds presumptuous, sounds arrogant, and that's why it should not be done. Additional reason the Etz Chaim brings, an additional reason is because of kavod Torah. That if anyone that wants to get up there just gets up by himself, it looks like a person that has like a overly aged girl that wants to just marry her off to anyone that comes. You don't have to be called. You don't have to. So Torah, we want to try to make it more bekavod. It's official. You call a person, they get up. Not everyone could just get up there by themselves, and therefore it's part of the decorum of the Bet Knesset and Sefer Torah, which decorum always gives a certain kavod. When you can't just get up somewhere, it gives kavod to that place. When you can't just walk over to Lavdil, a president, or that gives a certain decorum, it gives a certain kavod to that figure, and therefore it's important as well. We will Be'ezrat Hashem continue this in the days